Hello, everybody. This is a male space. Today I have Noah Revoy talking to me. Noah, could you please introduce yourself and what you do?
Hello, my name is Noah, and what I do is I help people to live the best versions of their lives. And what I do is I use what I call the meta father perspective to help people get what they didn't get from their own fathers, and not just from their actual biological father, but from the fathering aspect of society that helps men and women grow into their highly agentic, complete adult selves. I don't think most people have any kind of a disorder or a broken or anything where they're non-functional. It's because they haven't finished growing up in that area and they're not ready for the responsibilities they're taking on. And from that aspect, I move forward helping people using first principles and what I call natural law psychology. That psychology firmly based in the principles of natural law and observation.
Okay, thank you for that introduction. And you also do some work with NLI, the Natural Law Institute, right?
Yes, I'm one
Now,
of the senior fellows.
oh, great. I mean, what I gather from reading some of your posts and other members of the NLI is that this is a if I have it correctly, you could correct me if I'm wrong, is that
Mhm.
it seems to be a think tank or an intellectual society that is very concerned with men, but not only men, but also society as a whole, meaning it blends all this intellectual work into the fields of philosophy, art, history, anthropology, law, politics, everything. And it seems the aim is to have perhaps a vision so that people can flourish in general. Is that what it is? Could you elaborate on that?
Yes. We call it the science of cooperation. So we're trying to figure out what are the best ways to cooperate. If you think at it at the personal level, it's easy to scale it up. You can get someone to cooperate with you by threatening them, but it's not
Yes,
sustainable. It's not sustainable in the long term, and they'll
right.
do the minimum necessary. You can get people to cooperate with you by fooling and tricking them. Again, not sustainable, not a good idea in the long term. Or you can get people to cooperate with you by offering them reciprocal exchange. Hey, you do this for me, I'll do that for you. I'll watch your back, you watch mine. And that is sustainable, and that's the basis of the civilizations that we live in. And to the extent that your civilization employs reciprocity and high trust, you're able to scale it up. You can have a low trust civilization if you're little groups at the tribal level and you don't interact much with other groups because you have this familial trust. But as soon as you get to people you don't know, it has to be part of the culture. And so that's what we're looking at now. And I think a lot of the current problems that we're facing is because we've grown our population and our complexity to a level where we don't have the tools to deal with it. It's kind of like if you don't grow past the age of 12 maturity wise and you become 21 and now you've got all these responsibilities, you don't know how to handle them.
Yes.
There's nothing wrong with you per se. You just don't know what to do. And we're like that as a society. We're starting to grow into adulthood, so to speak, and we just don't know. We don't know how to create institutions at this size. And so we've been studying that and solving those problems. Why did our institutions break down when they got to a certain size? And what can we do to build better ones or fix the ones we have?
Yes, thank you for that. And that all makes sense because it seems to me that our populations have grown so large that, along with other cultural factors, that we've become, many of our societies have become individualistic and atomized to
Yes.
the point where, my channel is a male space. I'm focusing mostly on male issues that many men these days are suffering. And what I'm going to get into our first topic here, it ties in, for example, when you talked about tribe, is that I do believe that what's happening is that we've been so atomized and individualistic for decades. Who knows, going back how far? Maybe 100 years or so. Maybe perhaps my knowledge of history is lacking, but it seems for quite some time we've just been. Even the family unit has been breaking down and breaking down since the Middle Ages.
Yes.
What I would like to, I think that that would segue into our first topic here. I have the email that we exchanged showing the topics we're going to cover today. Is the topic of forming your own tribe? Meaning, I'm of the view that okay, a lot of the discourse online from men these days is simply complaining and complaining and complaining. And it comes to the point where, okay, yes, you could watch all these, clips of people showing their antisocial behavior. Look at this video of this woman saying these delusional kinds of things. Look at this, what that's being done wrong to me. I was denied a position because I'm male. There are misandric forces and elements of our society now that are against me, which yes, I think that these complaints are valid, but there does come a point where men, we can't complain any longer. And also, no one, it comes to the point where, okay, we can establish that the complaining is valid, but after a while, no one wants to keep hearing men complain. So, what I
Yes.
liked about your content is a call to action. And I saw recently that you've been focusing on uh, the concept of forming your own gang, crew, or posse, whatever term that we say, social clique, social circle. And I like that you differentiated the meaning of gang because when people think of gangs, they immediately think of criminal gangs. And as I told you in my email, that when I was very young in New York City, Queens, New York, there was an active gang and graffiti scene, and not all gang members wrote graffiti, but all graffiti members were part of a group. And my mom used to take me on the highways, and I used to see all these names all over the place. And even as a young age, I said, these guys belong to something. These guys are getting what they want. These guys have connections. These guys are making a statement. Now, it was criminal, but I did not join a gang when I got older because at the time I was in high school, that scene kind of died out. But I still think that there's a great importance in having a pro-social group, a network that a man can tap into to get ahead in life and get what he needs out of life. Can you expand upon that?
Yeah, we used to have things like guilds. So, well, first we were born into a gang. Families used to operate like a gang. It was an extended network, and you would have almost as much connection with your uncles and aunts as you did with your own parents. In fact, your mother's brothers were considered second fathers to you. So that way, her side of the family was able to pass on their masculine wisdom to you through her brothers. And when families broke apart, and this was all you mentioned already in the Middle Ages, we see a big rise in guilds. Why? I don't have eight uncles to have my back. I'm going to go to a guild where I got eight uncles to have. I mean, it's funny because the Japanese will call you that uncle. It's just, it means you're higher than me in my profession, and I learn from you. But you'll have all these pseudo uncles around to have your back and make sure you get work, make sure you are safe. And guilds used to get in like fights with each other, and now all kinds of crazy
Yeah.
things. We used to be a lot more wild as a people, and that gave you that community. And we look at it in very practical terms. We go, oh, I think it there's practical benefits, but it's also the emotional benefit. We are not made to not belong to someone. If I say, well, who do you I used to be in history when you'd meet someone, they'd say, I am Noah Revoy of, and then they would say who they belong to, a tribe or a king or, and there was prestige in belonging to the highest status group you could belong to. And royalty would have like a list of these things they belonged to. And we lost that today. We're just hi, I'm me, atomized individual with no protection and nobody's got my back. Please treat me fairly.
Yes, yeah. Even if you look at some names are reflective of where the person was from.
Hmm.
Or I think that even if I have it correctly, that even in some Scandinavian names, the meaning of some of the names are son of someone. It's not just this
Yeah.
individual, just me. It's I'm the son of this person. And even my close Korean friend said that even in Korea, some of the names are an indication of where this person is from. So that
Yes.
even when law enforcement has to find someone, they could kind of pinpoint it. Okay, what region is his name common in? It's not just the individual. And I think in the West, and I've discussed with my Korean friend, that we have gone wild with individualism. And um, I think this also,
Well, it's a refusal to take on any responsibility. We're looking for how do I minimize my responsibility and maximize my gain? Well, the state allows us to take from everybody, but there's nothing that forces us to give to everybody. You might say taxation. Well, you
yes,
don't pay taxes if you don't work. So we
yes,
can take without giving. As soon as we made that unbalanced system where you could take without giving, then why do I need to have responsibility in a group? Because group being part of a group starts with responsibility. You give before you get anything,
yes.
and it's like not a Ponzi scheme exactly, but you do give until you get. It takes a while.
Yes. Yeah, yeah, I'm of that mindset also. I think it's great importance for men to have brotherhood, masculine affection, guidance to one another. But this also seems, see, I'm not sure if I have this correct, but it's my thought is that I think there's a much complaint. You dealt with this also with the marriage issue and finding a mate. Some of your
Hmm.
content is finding a mate in a very good way, actually. More pro-social ways. None of this gaming and just approaching.
Trick a woman into marrying you and then wonder why she divorces you.
Yes, yes, all
Like,
that. So, yeah, but you see, I think that a lot of this, I think the expression of the lack of a woman amongst men online is a reflection of something else missing. Meaning
mhm.
that a man probably does not have a. If you see a man who is disconnected, well, then he probably does not have a woman, and much effort is given towards finding this woman. Where am I going to find this woman? I have to go on a dating app. I have to approach 20 women and cold approach them in a day. But this is a reflection to me of the lack of a base to begin with. Meaning, I grew up in a very ethnically diverse environment in Queens, New York City. It's one of the most diverse places in the world, literally. That the people I notice of the demographics that put community and family first didn't have a problem finding a mate. It's these atomized men without fathers, or even if a father is physically present, he's not
No
present.
father and no spiritual father and no community that had a masculine leadership. So you could
Exactly.
be in a community if there's no masculine leadership as a man, you're not learning anything. In fact, you're probably learning wrong.
Yes, actually, and I actually lacked a father for most of my life. For all practical purposes, I did not have a father. He was extremely negligent and mentally ill, meaning there was no presence at all, which obviously drew me towards your content, other people's content throughout these years. But I think, what do you think about that? Do you think that much of this frustration in finding a partner, a wife, is a reflection of being atomized to begin with? Because
Yes.
if you don't know anybody, well, how are you going to find a mate? I think there's something else missing. And also, this also leads to when someone is very lonely, we know that lonely has very bad health and quality of life implications. You're just not socialized correctly. You just don't know people's body language, how to talk, how to conduct oneself. So, uh,
Well, the Bible says it really weird. Well, it says, "Don't be alone too much, or you become weird." I'm paraphrasing, but it says you become weird.
yes,
And you start breaking forth against all good sense. It says, well, that's what happens if you're alone too much, or if you're with a very narrow clique of people that are almost identical to you. That might as well be alone. It's just you photocopied. And
yes,
what they're roughly half of all men historically never reproduced. We're at about 45% of men today are not reproducing, so it's just slightly better, but functionally roughly the same. And the men who get married and have kids and the men who don't, and many of the men who currently don't have kids will eventually marry and have kids, but the
yes,
ones who will never do it and the ones who either have or will do it inhabit different worlds. And you will notice that the men who do really well with women grow up usually surrounded by at least some very positive female interactions. Not necessarily their own age, might have been a grandma, it might have been their mom. I do notice right now a lot of it. Their mother was nuts. My mother was not completely balanced, but I had really wonderful grandmothers, and then I had really wonderful other young women at church who were my age, or roughly my age. And so I had this interaction that was incredibly positive, repeatedly, daily with women, so that my default is to say, women always treat me nice. And if one treats me badly, I don't go, ooh, I'm defective. It's like, wow, what's wrong with her? you
yes.
know? And it becomes the norm to be treated well, and you simply don't tolerate anything else. And I have had repeated cases where a woman says, comes to me as a client and says, I um, I always treat men terribly, and we're having a long conversation. So I treat men really badly. I'm disrespectful. I pick holes in them. I'm hypercritical, blah blah blah. Uh, and I'm thinking like, well, you're treating me really well. You're super respectful in this conversation. It's not that you don't know how to do it. What's the difference? And they say, I don't know, but you're not triggering my fear response. If women are treating you bad sometimes because they're bad people, but a lot of times, even the bad ones will treat you much worse if you trigger their fear response. And it's not that they're afraid of you, they're afraid that you're useless.
Okay, I get
you
it. Yes,
know,
yes,
and which means they're going to have to dig you out of the trouble. You're a burden on them. And so they don't like that. And men who weren't raised right, who don't have competence as mature masculine adult men that they should have by, say, 2021, they trigger fear in women because those women look at them and go, that's a giant baby.
yes,
He could kill me, but on the other hand, he's not going to do anything to help me. He's like, it's all downside and no upside.
yes,
You know?
yeah.
They don't mind that you're dangerous. They don't like the fact that you're also useless.
Yes, you see, I could attest that actually. And also I'm an open book. I've been an open book. I'm not going to tell my whole every facet of myself on my channel. However, I'm an open book because I feel that I have an obligation to help men, especially in areas of life that I was challenged with from lacking certain elements of my life, as particularly a father at all. So so that's actually true because I remember, and I said this in another video, that even in high school, there was a woman who was physically attracted to me. And she even said to one of my friends one time, without even talking to me much, because I had a very poor self image when I was younger, um, very cripplingly low self image. So she one time told my friend, without even speaking to me, that guy Bradley could have a girlfriend, but he acts like he can't. So
Hmm.
that right there, she read me immediately, said, okay, the guy's physically attractive, but like you said, maybe I think that probably the term useless was maybe valid. If I have to get this guy up here, if I'm the woman, I got to work on this guy to improve his self-esteem. I'm not fond of the word self-esteem per se. Self image, strength, whatever. I'm not here to.
Confidence.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
competence and confidence. I'm the woman. I'm not here to raise this guy over here. He should be coming to me with the competence and the leadership. So I definitely
Well,
see.
what she's thinking is if everything goes right, I'm going to get pregnant and I'm going to be real busy looking after a little tiny baby. And
Yes,
I don't
exactly.
got time for a big baby,
Yes,
you
exactly.
know?
Yeah, exactly. You're definitely spot on about this. And but one more thing before we go into the next topic. Do you think that some men these days are, let's say, almost addicted to complaining and not taking
Yes.
action? Meaning, it's much easier to get on the internet and complain rather than pick up the phone, get off the net, go meet someone in person. What do you think of that?
There was a really great clip with Greta Thunberg, and she's complaining, and the reporter says to her, well, what's your solution for all this? And she goes, I have no idea what the solution is. I'm just here to complain. And the thing is, we accept that from women and children because to some extent we view them as somewhat helpless. It's not completely
Yes,
true, but we view them that way.
yes,
But when a man does that, he doesn't fit into one of the acceptable complaining categories. And so the man, there is an acceptable way for a man to complain. And we have this within the Natural Law Institute. If you make a complaint about something and what we're doing in our direction internally, you have to say, I don't think this is going to work because of this, this, and this. Here is my alternative. Oh, and I'm volunteering to lead the effort to fix it.
yeah,
And if you're
yes,
not willing to put your own skin in the game, you don't care enough about the problem to fix it and to have a say in fixing it. And
right.
and so we almost never get any complaining. And when we do, it's usually someone that's half fixed the problem already. And so it's more like, here, I report back, I fixed it, you know?
Yes,
And so complaining is cheap. It's easy. And
yeah,
it's what you do when you're a kid. And these men, they're stuck in that habit from childhood because two things would have got them out of it. One, a father. Somewhere around 12 years old, it becomes really annoying when your kids complain. Like little kids complain, you're like, oh, I'll get you what you need. Don't worry, kid. You're hungry? Yeah, I'll get it. At
yeah.
12, it's like, get it yourself, man. You
Exactly.
know?
Yes. Yeah. Even with my son, he's 8 years old, but sometimes he'll say, "Dad, take this." Or he's like, "I could bring that plate back to the sink yourself. I'm not doing it for you. Put your shoes away. I'm not doing this." So
Stop asking mom to butter your bread. Get a knife and butter it
exactly. Yes.
yourself, you know?
Exactly. All that. So
Yeah. And
I
so a
totally agree
father,
with
a
you.
father
Yeah.
would have fixed that.
Yes.
If a father didn't fix it, joining a lawful gang, not a criminal gang, a group of men following the law would have, because other men wouldn't have tolerated that behavior.
Exactly. Yes. And also back in the day, also we regulated men who couldn't regulate themselves, and I want to get into that also when we're going
Yes.
to discuss the men who R versus K selected men. So definitely, but you see, a lot of men will continue to complain further and say, "Well, I'm being discriminated against in school. I'm being discriminated against here. Misandry is all over." But my view is this, though. Okay, that actually is true in some cases. I've looked into this. It is true. Boys are not created some ways in the same way that girls are. The classroom is fashioned in a feminized way. You see, my kids are homeschooled. I know that you were home. Go ahead.
Well, it's like this almost. So it's this is the kind of weird when you think about it. So for women, yes, more beautiful women. If you're a beautiful woman and you have some level of self-control and some social awareness, the world is your oyster, right? Until you get married, then you belong to somebody and start having his kids, and you're no longer on top. But for men, you're either considered valuable or not valuable. And if you're considered valuable, you're at the top of the social hierarchy, and nobody's against you. Nobody's against masculinity from actually masculine men.
Yes,
What they're against is incompetent men demanding the respect that masculinity deserves without the associated effort and competence and value added that it deserves.
yes,
And so that's why you'll either get, I'll do something and I'll get a great response from people from it, and then someone that is faking it will do it and they'll get a terrible response. That's all they see though is the terrible response. They don't realize that it's not the response to what they did, it's the responding to them. And that's completely natural for their age and development level. And they just need to up their game and they'll get into the other half where you're now considered competent. And when you do stuff, you get rewarded for it.
yes, exactly. And also, but despite the I mean, you're on point with all that you said, actually. But what I'm saying is that uh, let's say there are forces against men, and
Mhm.
there are. My view is this, though, is that okay, whatever forces are against a young man, my view is form a group, network, do things for yourself. If you cannot get into a school because you were discriminated against, think of something else. Do something else. Form a business with your friend. Get online. Do something. Let's say that will benefit the man monetarily by with other people or by himself. I remember that you were talking to Anthony Dream Johnson in one segment about men forming businesses with themselves
Yeah.
after the connections that they made at the 21 convention.
Yeah.
So
Well, hey, look, if you couldn't get into a university because you were discriminated against, that's illegal.
yes,
You by yourself can't do much about it. But you're not the only one that got discriminated. Why don't you go find like 2 dozen other guys and do a class action lawsuit? And people, well, I can't because I need this and that. And they will, instead of looking for ways they can make it happen, they look for reasons why they don't shouldn't do it. And
exactly.
that's the problem. You gotta look, you gotta go, uh, the world sucks. It's completely against me. I'm gonna kick its ass anyway. And then you
Yeah,
go forward and make it happen.
yeah. I'm of that notion also. I mean, if I were a young man, I'd be forming a powerlifting club. I'd be going on hiking groups, martial arts training amongst one another, learning how to use weapons in self defense, all that
Well,
stuff like that.
you used to do bodybuilding. You stand in front of a stage, and all the competitors there want you to lose because that's the only way they can win.
Yes,
You go there with a bunch of people that want you to lose. You still cooperate with them anyway because if you don't all cooperate and follow the same rules, you can't have a competition.
yes, exactly.
So we can find ways. Men who don't even like each other can find ways to cooperate. How come you can't find ways to cooperate with guys that are essentially you? Just,
Yes,
you, but slightly different.
yeah, exactly. I'm all for that, and that's what I'm trying to promote here. I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm trying to promote. Uh, I guess the word positive sometimes is cliche, but that's what I'm trying to promote. Also, not just diagnosing problems.
When you really think about it, this is hard for some of the young guys to see. No one's ever loved them.
Hmm.
You and I'm not getting paid to do this. You're not getting paid to do this. We're coming out here because we care about them. And it's not the love. We don't know them personally, so it's not that kind of love. But it's that kind of agape. This is the Greek word that means like a principled love, love for your fellow
Yes,
man. We
yep,
love them and care about them, and we know what works. We
yes,
also can see them jumping in the quicksand over and over again, and we're begging them, please stop doing that. Please cooperate with each other, work together, take care of yourself better. While we care about them, we can't pull them out of the quicksand for two reasons. We don't have the energy to pull everybody out. And the second thing is that it's humiliating and emasculating for us to save them. That's why I don't save people. I don't try to save the young men I work with. I'll tell you how to save yourself.
yes. Very good. That's great. And now I want to go also into our second topic. Now is that I found it interesting that you were talking about, and I think that some, if I recall correctly, some other writers from NLI have discussed different sorts of men. And one of your articles, forgot the exact title, I was reading about a week or two ago about R versus K selected men. And the way that I interpreted the R selected man, I mean, there are R selected people throughout history. There were from evolutionary pressures, their mating strategies, let's say the way that they conducted themselves in all sorts of areas of life, but we could still see this within our societies here, these sorts of different types of avatars. And some men, probably there is some nuance who don't fall into either one, or you could get a
Yeah, it's
case.
like a broad spectrum.
Yes. Yeah, you could
Yeah,
also get a case selected man who decides to become doesn't become R selected, but he starts to behave like an R selected man because he sees the R selected men winning. And
yeah,
my observation, especially where I grew up, is that it's kind of cheap to win as an R selected man. If you, especially in a society like ours, where no one people are not regulating each other. Even the government is not great at regulating people. Institutions are not. And if you're just a guy who just says, "Screw this, I'm breaking rules," well, going back to our first topic, you can look very competent in a certain sense. In front of women, in front of other men, just from the sheer aggression, the sheer threats and intimidation. Whereas, let's say, a case selected man, my view is that his life strategy is more on respect, like you said, reciprocity, fairness, honor, duty, etc., chivalry, as you were discussing on X. Now, do you think that the sexual market has been tainted by these sorts of R-selected men ruling the roost? Because, as I said in my email to you, uh, what Roger Devlin said in Sexual Utopia and Power, the feminist revolt against civilization, he said that in sexual liberation, he said, like inflation, sexual liberation turns the market morally upside down by
yes,
actively punishing the virtuous and rewarding the vicious. So
yeah,
my view, even when I was younger, because I come from the latchkey kid era, where latchkey kid implies fatherlessness, meaning the women were not fathered properly, I wasn't fathered properly, many of us were not. So you just have these people who are just thrown to the wolves, acting how they want, unregulated, and who wins in that situation? Well, the term nice guy finished last does apply to that situation, and it seems to me that even from the complaints that you see in these videos, these TikTok videos of these women very depressed and very sad that some guy they used up all their 20s by these guys who so-called, I don't like being vulgar, but the term fits, pumped and dumped them, and you'll see everybody trying to run her. You see the men commenters below these videos trying to rub it in her face. Well, that's your fault. You went for this man. It's
if you're a man and you're reasonably physically fit, like almost no man today has an ounce of muscle on him. If you're reasonably physically fit, if you don't stink, and if you're not under 5 feet tall, and you're somewhat charming, it is not hard to get laid at all. It's never been easier in history to get laid. The problem is that, and part of that is because women are incredibly easy. They're reflective. They almost immediately fall into a masculine man's frame, just being around them. Just in a couple minutes, I do hypnotism as well, and they literally get hypnotized by a masculine man, and they will do anything he says. And if you're a masculine man, you already know that. So I'm not explaining anything new to you. This is for the men that haven't experienced this. And I have had this happen to me since I was a preteen, where girls would just be like, "Yeah, what do you want me to do?" Like it was like magic, and to the point where I didn't know it was any different for other people. And I only found that as I got older and started having friends and seeing them struggle. And so when you're in that position, I totally understand the women afterwards going, "Wait, I didn't really want to do that." And they probably didn't, but they also didn't want to not do what the masculine man said, because the way women survive is by doing what the most dominant male near to them says to do. That's how they've always survived in human history. And so we're in this situation. It's exactly what you said. If you do the right thing, you're punished. If you take advantage of everybody, you're rewarded. And we've not just got that in the sexual marketplace. It's in every marketplace.
yes, yes, exactly, yes.
You know, we've become a society that rewards vice and evil And then we go, out, I don't know why we're losing our high trust society.
Exactly, yes, because much of our, I mean, I'm not an economist. I don't keep track of what goes on in the economy in detail, but I would say that vice makes up a significant portion of our economy. The sorts
Yeah.
of music that people listen to, pornography, the alcohol, all kinds of things like that. I mean, I do drink alcohol from time to time, but I
It becomes a vice when it's uncontrolled,
yes,
and some things are a vice. I mean, I would say, someone can have a healthy cocaine habit. So there are things that even in small
yes,
doses, yeah,
yes, exactly, yeah,
even in small doses, not a
yeah,
good idea, especially not as a habit. But what we've also done is we've stopped rewarding virtue. And so, if you're a case selected man who is competent at the top of the case selected hierarchy, you have unlimited opportunities to have sex with women that aren't your wife, and you have to say no. And then people go, "What an idiot."
exactly,
You
yes,
know?
yeah,
Well, why would you do that?
yes,
Why don't you have like six wives and why don't you do this and why don't you do that? And so for those men, and look, we're all heavily influenced by the opinions of others, whether we pretend we are or not. Hearing other people have an opinion, this is why it's so important to be careful what we listen to. Hearing
mhm,
someone else have an opinion brainwashes us, whether we want to be or not. So I guarantee you, people watching us in our conversation here will come away slightly more aligned with us than before they started the conversation. And that's great if you're listening to things that align you in a healthy way. But almost all entertainment that's not amateurs like us doing it online
yeah, yeah,
is telling you to be a vice filled pseudo evil psychopath.
yes, yeah,
And then we wonder why this is the direction our kids are getting pushed in. This is the direction, and like I said, women are incredibly sensitive to what they perceive as a dominant narrative. They're just one of the main reasons women go to university is because they have no sisterhood at home.
mhm,
They're not getting along with their mom. They don't have a sister because they're like an only child or they have like one brother or whatever. They're not getting along. They have no sisterhood. They have no direct opportunity to get married because no one, they're told you can't get married at 18. That's somehow verboten now.
yeah,
So they go, well, I'm going to go to university and I'll find a sisterhood there. I'll find community there. That's actually the main reason they go is to find community. They don't, I've never met a woman yet outside of a couple of autistic engineering girls that go, oh, I'm so excited about what I'm going to learn. They all talk
mhm,
about the social aspects of it because they need community. Women need gang too. They need the communal gang. Only it should be family for them. Men are very good at making ad hoc gangs out of guys that aren't related and getting together and operating like a family. Women really need it to be family.
yeah,
Either they marry in or it's their actual blood relatives. They don't have that. So we haven't given women the incentive structure to behave. We've given men the incentive structure to misbehave.
yes,
And also because men and women are so different, any woman that wants to misbehave, she like how hard is it for a woman to get laid? She just has to exist, you know.
yes,
But with men, it's incredibly asymmetrical. There's this tiny group that has no problem with women at all, probably less than 10%, maybe 5%. And then there's this group at the end that's like 25% that will never touch a woman. And then there's another 25% that are maybe it's a struggle for them to get any attention. And then there's like this middle group that's kind of the middle America, keeps us stable, part of society. But for men, it's a pretty raw deal. Back in a case elected society, almost every man gets married and has kids. And if he doesn't, he's given an honorable position in society where
right,
you're the uncle, you're gonna help me with my farm, and we'll take care of you when you get old.
yes,
And that, I mean, that happened to some of my uncles and aunts that didn't have kids. They were either unable to or they got married too late, and we looked after them when they got older. When I say that, it's actually my great uncles and aunts. But yeah, we look after them because that's what family does. But right now, people they don't have a path to getting married. A lot of the guys complain about women, they will never get married. They have no path to it.
yes, yeah,
And they have no alternative. They're not thinking about an alternative. I have an article written that I haven't published yet, and it's five alternative paths for men that aren't going to get married. And it's like I know this sounds crazy, but you go join a monastery. I actually think it'd be great if all young men spent at least 2 or 3 years living in a sequestered religious life. I think it would do wonders for their maturity. But there's that you could learn to be the artist or the teacher, or I give a few different options. They're not certainly the only options. But if you're a man or a woman and you're not on a path to family, then you got to find something else to do. And we have to be realistic for a lot of these young guys. They probably shouldn't be pursuing women. And here's the irony of it all. If they pursued one of those other paths hard enough, aside from, of course, the religious life, because then you are sequestered, but if they pursued one of those other paths of mastery in some other area, that's probably their best shot at finding a woman.
Right, right, because you're tying back to what I said before. I mean, there's no base,
Yes.
and you're just trying to find this woman. It usually won't work out. And also for the guys that you said, let's say the 5 to 10% of men who have no problem finding a woman, there probably is something else there. Probably good genes, very good looking, or I don't think it's all looks. I'm not into
I
this.
think it's mostly charm.
Yeah, yeah. I don't think right. I don't think this. I think this lookism thing and this heightism thing is way overblown. I think that more is that there are some men out there who are talented, who have good family ties, socially connected. These are the 5 or 10% of men, and I do not think it's all of looks. It is status and other factors that most men don't have. Not that it's bad that
My dad had a really good friend. Um, well, as good a friend as you could be with a guy like this. When I explain him, you'll understand what I mean. He was very tall. He was like 6.5 feet tall. He was an actual model. He had no other job besides being a model when my dad hired him, and he kind of aged out of modeling. And he never saved a penny because he had barely had two brain cells to rub together. He was the most boring man in the world. When I met him, I was maybe 10. He was married to a model as well, and they were gorgeous people, incredibly boring.
mm,
And I remember my dad and him would hang out. My dad was a big, like super muscular, very like radiated energy type guy. And women would come along though to his friend. That's who they wanted to talk to, and they couldn't get him to like he couldn't engage in conversation. He didn't not want to. He couldn't. There was nothing going on behind those eyes.
okay, yeah,
And like this is why he was my dad was more or less taking care of him than it was a friend.
right.
And the women would get bored and start talking to my dad. And they ended up more into my dad than they were into his friend, who was taller and better looking and like theoretically more of a catch
Mm,
because he had no charm at all. Now, a
yes,
woman can kind of get away with having no charm as long as she doesn't speak, but a man can't. We
mhm,
have to be the activator. And in fact, I would say for men, our ability to activate and to make things happen in the world is our primary measure of our charm. Can you make
yeah,
stuff happen? Yes, then you're charming.
yeah. I agree that I've observed that over and over and over again. And one more thing before we go into the next topic, our final topic, is that do you sometimes people complain, for example, about the so-called double standard. And you know the double standard is that if a woman is sexually liberated, has many partners, she is shamed. I don't think there's much shame going on these days, however.
I wish, I
Yeah,
wish it was
yeah,
shame.
and there should be shame of men also. So
Yeah.
I don't have a double standard per se. You know, as I said before, even in serious societies, men that could not regulate themselves, including regulation of sexuality, were dealt with. Meaning that you know,
Yes.
yeah,
We
we
used to shame women and hang men,
yes, actually, yes. So
you
when people
know?
say right, so when people say double standard, you know, my view is this though, is that if men have a problem with this, right, and they believe that both, well, hopefully they want their fellow men to behave also and women to behave, then men are going to have to regulate themselves also. Meaning that I personally do not like this sort of reverence for this Chad icon, meaning that you know this image of this man who just goes around seducing all kinds of women. This was to me, you're
That's
probably
the R selected alpha,
yes,
you
exactly.
know?
Yeah, yeah. So, but perhaps you're probably more educated on history than I am. But my understanding of history is that serious societies would not allow a so-called Chad running roughshod over society. It
Yeah.
simply they had legal sanctions put on them, their employment removed, and like you said, actually hanged. And I believe that this double standard, I could be wrong, that it came out with the in the sexual revolution and from people like Hugh Hefner who said that the man who reads Playboy is Fastidious about his appearance, his home, and his possessions, he wants as much sex as possible and chooses sexual partners mostly on the basis of appearance. He is self absorbed and doesn't want emotional involvement or commitment. He thinks a woman would stifle him and children would be a burden. As I said, no serious society ever tolerated this. This is a
No.
reflection of this should be an embarrassment to us, actually, the
Well,
popularity.
it's a direct result of the end of the when we say chivalry, this has nothing really to do with women. It's more about how men solve problems with other men,
Yes,
and with their lords in the case of knights.
yes,
Um, it's a direct result of the end of the duel era
yes,
because you just wouldn't survive because you'd be challenged to duels until you somebody's going to kill you at some point.
yeah,
You
yes,
know,
exactly.
and heck, it's not even winning a duel doesn't mean you win, because it's very likely that someone's going to shoot you in the back as revenge for you shooting their brother or whatever.
Yes,
So there's no if you're consistently in duels, the system is designed to take you out of the gene pool.
yeah,
It's not designed for you to dominate through being good at duels.
yes,
And so, Matt, when we lost the duel, and we only really lost that around just before World War One, the French were still doing it during the officers during World War One were still having duels. So it's a very recent thing. As soon as we did that, then all of a sudden, there was no check and balance on male sexual aggression, and
yes.
and now it's just do what you can get away with.
Right, exactly, and I believe that this is sort of like a parasitism on the sexual market. And I
Yes.
just to go back to our final topic is that that I do not take. I think that this is very unhealthy to look at these videos and to ridicule women and get this sort of Schadenfreude satisfaction out of women going after uh, these are selected men. I don't think I don't take any pleasure in seeing that. But like we said, like you said before, if okay, if these men are so good, well then they should come to the fore and demonstrate their strength in other ways, in more pro-social ways, and not let the are selected men rule the roost. Is that it
Yeah.
seems almost as if virtuous men became, for lack of a better word, like overly civilized, like overly. Does that make any sense?
Well, what we did is we kept certain virtues that were also a little bit of it is the excessive Christianization of Europeans. We needed a little bit of that honor culture that was more common amongst the aristocracy, and the aristocracy continued that even after they became Christian. But we need that honor culture because you either have an honor culture or a dishonor culture.
Yes.
There's no third option.
Yes.
And right now we have a dishonor culture. You get promoted, popular. You get popular because you're dishonorable, and because you won't follow through on the things you do, and because you cheated the system. Yay, you! Whereas when you have an honor culture, if you're not honorable, there are sanctions and consequences up to and including you disappear.
Yes. Exactly.
You know, and we need that because it is very easy to fool most women into bed.
Mhm.
And to a point where, and I've coached a lot of women, and it's a little scary. It's almost like maybe you guys should have a chaperone at all times
Yeah. Yes.
because it's just guys who don't have a lot of experience with women don't realize this. Guys that do know it and often just don't want anyone else to know it, so they shut up about it. And and when I say experience with women, like I was married. When I married, I was a virgin. So was my wife.
Yeah.
Okay, and I've only ever had sex with her. So I don't
Yes.
mean sexual experience, but I have a lot of experience working with women on the intimate issues of their life. And because sometimes they need to talk to a man, or they often tell me, if I talk to a woman about this, she's just going to tell me, go, girl, go. If I talk to you, you're going to tell me where I'm wrong, but you're not going to be mean about it, you know? You're going
Yeah.
to have that fatherly balance, you know? And so they don't have the same level of agency over sexuality that men do. So there needs to be double standards for women, and the double standard should be that women are never exposed to predatory men,
Yes.
you know?
Yeah.
And we had gotten rid of our own predatory men so thoroughly. This is partly why we don't have any left to fight.
Yes.
you know, because there are good predatory men and bad predatory men. There
Yes.
are good ones that go, I'm going to get rid of that bad guy, and then there are the ones that go, I'm going to use my power for bad. And I honestly think to some degree those are the same men raised in different ways.
Yes.
You know,
And
you I
yes.
know that because I'm a predator as well. I mean, just I am.
Yes.
It's a proper description of how my mind works. But my inclination is towards good because I was raised with a very strict set of moral values and ethical codes. And when I follow those codes, any destructive nature is channeled pro-socially. And that's what we should be doing with men. We got so good at doing that and so good at suppressing male violence
Yes.
that we allowed female violence, which includes men manipulating women. Manipulation is more of a feminine way of fighting.
Yeah.
There's men that use feminine undermining tools and manipulation to trick women into sleeping with them.
Yes. And I have.
And yeah, and that we have no defense as a society against that. In fact, if you try to protect society from that at the moment, you're going to be told that you're misogynistic.
Yes, exactly. And as I've been saying, I want to touch upon this briefly. Is that when I was younger in my in the latchkey kid era, the lack of fatherly authority was is now that I say it, pathetic. I mean, there were fathers who were completely checked out of their daughters' lives. I mean, checked out. I mean, allowing girls, the keyword girls, 12 years old, to be out on a Saturday night amongst men, see, girl, men, till 3 a.m. in the morning, or who knows, sleepovers wherever in unsupervised homes. To me, I just can't understand what is going through a father's head like that, and not to think that this usually an attractive girl is not going to be in the presence of predatory men, and that's exactly what happened in many cases. I know many examples of this. So, but then,
Well, a
like you said,
non-predatory man's going to go, "Hey, you're a 12-year-old girl. What are you doing here?
yeah, exactly,
You're going home right now. I'm getting you a cab. You're going home." You
yes,
know?
exactly,
And
yes.
that's how you know that the place was full of predatory men, because any non-predatory man would have sent that girl home to her parents.
Exactly. But then, like you said, we have a situation in society where the family unit has no strength. There are no clans, there's no community that has strength unto themselves. It is the state interfering with the protection of families, meaning that if you are a man and you do take out the rifle and point it at a predatory man's head who is looking for your daughter or whatever, you are looked at as controlling. You are not, you know, sorry for that ping. Uh, have you? Is that where you're going with this? Meaning that the father
Yep.
is not even allowed
Yes.
to?
Well, what happened is we delegated, because that's all we did. We, as men, we retained the responsibility for violence in our own communities, but we delegated that responsibility to the state,
Yes.
and then we were really not that involved in figuring out who's going to execute on that. And
Yeah.
so we have a lot of people in the state that are the predators. Well, as soon as the predators realize, hey, they delegated all the power to the state. If I go to the state and I get in there, I'm going to be immune and I can do anything I want. And so we simply created a situation where it was very attractive for bad people to join the government because of the power that was there. And this won't be fixed until fathers, I mean, it's a patriarchy, fathers are going to have to take back that responsibility and go, that was a mistake. We should not have delegated that much power to the state. We're taking a lot of this back. This doesn't mean lawlessness, but it means we are going to fill the blank where the state is not promoting lawfulness. We are now going to create the institutions necessary to do that. And the the law is not what's written on paper. That is the rules of man, and hopefully they line up with natural law. But where they don't, then you have to follow the law of nature. And the first law of nature is you have a right to defend your survival and the survival of your people. And if you are in a place where that's being denied to you, then you have to work outside the law, outside the written words, because that law of nature, and it's a law of nature and of God, is above anything that the state can write.
Yeah.
And when they're restricting you from doing your job as a father, then they're illegitimate. Now,
Yes.
that
Yes.
doesn't mean there's no consequences for you acting. You have
Yeah.
to
Of
be
course.
smart
Exactly.
about it.
Yeah.
But
Exactly.
but
Yes.
it's like someone said to me, "Oh, if you get married, it doesn't matter how alpha you are, the courts will still come and your wife will take everything you own." And I'm said to him, "Do you think that ever happens to mob bosses?"
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
Like,
Exactly.
no. And they're like, there's a
Yeah,
reason for that.
yes, exactly. What you said is, you hit the nail on the head as you've been doing this whole talk. Is that I remember one time, I can't pinpoint where I read this, that some guy said, when the government becomes so out of control, the only way to get control is to go break the law. Meaning that things are so out of control, and the law, pretty much like the law is lawless, meaning that the office of law or the institution of law is lawless is now lawless. Well, then you have to break their laws. It's not making sense anymore. I'm not encouraging anything here, but
No, no.
yes,
Well, and there's a situation that's described as without rule of law. I'm about to teach a course on this for the Modern Minuteman Project. But the without rule of law doesn't mean that the government doesn't exist. It means
yes,
it's not enforcing the rule of law.
mm,
Okay. Now, if it enforces like traffic law, but not protection of women and children from predatory men,
yes,
then it's not enforcing the law. Like you can't say, well,
exactly,
it's doing really good over here. Okay,
yeah,
then don't interfere with that. Let them do it. And you create a parallel institution to enforce the law over here.
yeah,
We as men in society have the right to create parallel institutions. And whenever we see that the institutions that exist do not satisfy the needs of the people, it's in the Constitution if you're American.
mm,
If the government's no longer meeting the needs of the people have the right to replace the government.
yes, yeah,
And that might just be one little institution or the other. That might be solving one specific problem or the other. And you have to find out how to do that. You escalate. You start off within the law, and then you escalate until the problem is solved, wherever that ends up taking you.
yes. I see that. Those are great points, as most of your points are here. All of them, actually. Everything you're saying here, I agree. I'm just gonna keep saying I agree, because you're making perfect sense with what you said here. Is that
Thank you.
and do you have time for one more topic, or do you have to
Yeah,
go?
yeah. I'm not pressed for time. Don't worry. Go, go.
Okay. So now the third one that I wanted to touch upon is that is your article titled "Rewrite the Story You Live By."
Hmm.
Now this hit home with me as your other articles and posts have, because it's from the way I interpreted what you wrote, and I reread it again last night, is that we sometimes have to, and again, we're dealing with the crisis of fatherlessness here, the breakdown of the family unit. My interpretation of the article is that if we're in this situation, sometimes our minds can do tricks on us, and we could actually start forming negative images of ourselves that are not even grounded in reality. It might be someone mistreating us, misbehaving around us, and even being, for myself, being, let's say, not. I mean, I was never, let's say, seriously physically abused. However, I grew up in a very tumultuous household. And I have a great relationship with my mother. I speak to my mother almost every single day now. Our relationship is great now. But when I was younger, for various reasons that I'm not going to get into here, it just created this, I should, lack of a better word, just say kind of a sad environment, meaning that a lot of dictation, a lot of just expressions of sadness or frustration, right? And also, in the town that I grew up in, it was a lower middle class area, and I noticed that, reflecting back on this, is that for whatever reason, I grew up around other people that were emotionally and verbally abusive to one another. Meaning that I even said to my friend one time who grew up in the same situation, not the most refined environment, but then again, not poor, but you're like, let's say below middle, lower middle class. You're kind of getting to the lower rungs of society where things are not refined. People are not polished in the way they speak or treat one another, and they certainly probably. I don't care if this insults anybody. They're not going to have a conversation like the way that you and I are here. It's going to be people I grew up with. They wouldn't even know what the hell we're talking about.
They're
Term.
limited. They're limited. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Yes. So it almost seemed like the default was that someone had an issue of some sort, and they would express their frustration or kind of dominance on other people. Meaning, it almost seemed like like the default was to insult other people. And I was a
Mhm.
very sensitive kid because I did not have a dad, and also combination of not having a dad and also a sensitive predisposition to begin with. Now, some men, when they have a tough disposition and no dad, well, the toughness just becomes out of control. And
Yeah.
if a boy is sensitive and he feels like he has no backing, he says, you might even realize as a boy that you are weak. I mean, not weak physically, but I have no. Go ahead.
I liken it to a fire. So if you don't have a father, you might end up burning too weakly. Like your
Yes.
fire just isn't burning as hot as it should be. You're not as intense as you should be, and you'll feel weak. Or if you have no father, you might be burning out of control like a forest fire.
Yeah.
And you're either that makes you either destructive or useless. Whereas if you're in the middle, you are burning hot, but you're in a controlled burn and you're doing it for a specific purpose and
Right.
that energy goes somewhere to do something. And that requires structure. Well, that's what a dad is. Dad is there to give you structure.
Right, exactly. And it almost seemed like my brother, not seemed, this is the way it worked out, is that my brother, he's all fine now. He has a profession, he, so-called squared up, fine now, right? But he turned to some destructive things, whereas I turned inward and just became very apathetic towards life. And when you're apathetic like that, and also if you're seen useless towards other men that are very aggressive and maybe out of control, also, well, they know from the point that they're looking at you for 5 seconds. I don't even mean 5 minutes. They know I'm going to be abusive to this guy. This is going to be an easy target, right? Now, it
Yeah.
wasn't terrible bullying, but just me at the time being so sensitive is that even just, insults and mean words would just further erode my self image, right? Until I started working on myself, meeting other men, improving myself physically and intellectually. Now, do you have any advice about how people can get out of this rewiring? Because even some, like, let's say, I have no problem talking to people. I'm kind of even speaking publicly now, but I'm going to put this on YouTube. I'm open for, it's beyond public speaking. I'm open to criticism from every troll and nut job out there who can insult me right now. You know what I'm saying? So even speaking in a
Yeah,
room of,
what I like to say is you can't say anything worse than the other kids did when I was a kid.
yeah, exactly. Yes. Yeah. 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 So,
I'm immune now.
yeah, exactly. Yes. So, I have no problem speaking in front of a meeting of, let's say, a few dozen people. I even spoke to a crowd one time that might have been 50 plus people. So it took a lot of work because when I was younger, and I want to stop, I'm going to get to the point here, is that I almost had this problem where people, as two particular men, were so emotionally abusive to not only me, but the people around them. They just had this pleasure in just mentally destroying people, right? To the point where even when I was growing up, it had such an impact on me that I would have like problems trying to publicly speak because I thought that an insult was coming my way. And then slowly but surely, I said to myself, or realized, wait, not everybody's like that. That's not normal. That is totally abnormal. People don't behave like this, especially if they're good people. So I had this wiring where, like, okay, my home life is tumultuous. People around me are abusive. This is what the world's like. I have no dad. My dad will not defend me. He's useless. The world is a hostile place, and that's how it is. Until I started to meet other people. Now, how do you
Well,
give us?
imagine instead of a couple of guys, it was a couple of women. Then you'd be like, "Oh, I hate women then."
Yeah, that could happen
You just
too.
I don't know any other women hardly, and I assume that's what they're all like from the two that I know and I
Yeah,
don't like,
yeah,
you
exactly.
know?
Yes.
And
So, go ahead.
you're right. You hit the nail on the head. Get out and meet other people. That's what you said in the beginning. You've got to expose yourself to more people, and that's really hard to do when you think the world is super dangerous,
Yes, that's right.
And a lot of what you described, like if someone mouthed off like that all the time, 100 years ago or 100 something years ago, somebody would pop them in the mouth. And
Yes.
they get punched often enough that they would probably correct their behavior because that would have happened at an early age because they didn't
Yeah,
just become like that. They were probably like that since they were kids,
exactly. Yes.
And they would have got that corrected probably before they're out of their teens.
Yeah, because now that I look back on it, some of these people who are behaving in these antisocial ways amongst other people, I said to myself, how were they raised? I mean, what? I mean, it also it shows a breakdown of the schools. It shows a breakdown of religious institutions also because if it wasn't the father, someone somewhere, like you said, would have already taken care of this.
We cannot correct the worst aspects of male antisocial behavior without violence.
We
The
can't.
problem is we've got a big gap. We still use violence to correct it. Look at all the kids get shot in fights with the police or
Yeah,
stabbed or other things. Well, what we do is we say either we ignore it, oh, now we're going to shoot you.
Yeah. That's
And there's nothing in between. Like, where's the
right.
chain of escalation to you need to be publicly ridiculed. That didn't work. You probably need a beating. Oh, that didn't work. You need a double beating.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
You know?
Yeah. Now, do you have any advice before we part ways of how to get out of this? Well, you
Yeah.
said to me other people.
Yeah.
That's one way that I
That's
did it.
one way.
Self introspection, learning. Are those things that you suggest?
Yes.
Anything else?
Yeah. And here's the thing: the people that most need to change their story are the ones that have the hardest time changing it because they have the most toxic story, which makes it more difficult for them to do the things they need to get out of it. And so you got to start small. If you had a belief that getting on an elevator was going to kill you, you're not going to get on like an elevator up to the top of the Eiffel Tower on your first try at an elevator. What you're going to do is you're going to get on. You're just going to go like near an elevator at first, and maybe a little closer, maybe put your foot in it. You're going to get little bits by bits exposure to things until that phobia goes away. And it's essentially the same. People have got a phobia to certain social interactions, or they still perceive themselves as the helpless child. And so the other thing you want to do is you want to take a real good look at yourself in the mirror and go, I am not a helpless child anymore. I'm a man.
Yes.
And I don't need to take this shit anymore.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know? And if you look at yourself in the mirror and you go, yeah, I'm kind of a wimp. I probably am going to take it. Then stop being a wimp. Go work out, learn how to fight. Then come back and look in the mirror and go, yeah, I guess I don't need to take it anymore.
Yeah. Exactly. Yes.
And here's the weird thing. The more obvious it is to other people that you won't take their shit, the less of it they give you.
Yes.
So the people that are capable of doing something about mouthy people don't get mouthed off to.
Yeah.
And
Exactly. Yeah.
so just be that kind of person, and all of a sudden, people treat you better.
Yeah. Because yeah, you're right. Because I can't even remember the last time. Well, there is always people who are being wise ass or whatever. You're gonna encounter people who are just disrespectful or just rude or wise ass. You can't control everybody's behavior, also, but you can definitely walk away from it and say, "I'm just not dealing with you." Screw this. But I can't even recall someone needling me excessively in ages because I did do what you're suggesting here, actually. So, although I do regret not taking up a martial art. I believe that I should have taken that way, way back, but I never thought of it or was never introduced to me. People around me were seriously just uninterested in that stuff. But I mean, there were no.
We have this weird anti-violence culture. We're not anti-violence. We're anti having agency over violence.
Yeah,
If it's blow somewhere else up, with a remote missile, okay. But if it's, maybe you should learn how to fight. Maybe your kids should learn how to fight. I will tell people, most of the people that I hang around with are think it's great, but I'll tell people, oh, yeah, my son's learning how to fight. He's 12, so he's been taking kickboxing now since he was 7. And most people are like, oh, that's a great idea. And then you get some people like, oh my God, why would you teach your kid to fight?
yeah,
I have a bunch of rubber training knives, and I'm teaching my kid how to fight with a knife properly. And I'm doing this in the park. And some
yeah.
people are like, "That's so awesome! Hey, can I give go a bit?" And other people are like, "Why would you teach your kid that?" And I'm like, the main reason is I want my kid to understand that he's going to get cut. So
Yeah,
don't do this.
yes,
Learn how to do it so you don't have to do it. But the same with, and I'm in Europe, so we're not, I haven't been teaching my kid how to use a gun uh, that I will admit to. But um, in America, it's totally normal when your kid's, 7, 8 years old, gets his first gun, learns how to shoot, gets his, maybe when he's around 12, starts learning how to shoot a pistol and other things like that, because it's considered a part of the responsibility in certain American subcultures that this is your responsibility, is to learn how to defend yourself.
yes,
And that is part of natural law. We have a responsibility, not a right. And I would really like to see a rewrite of the Bill of Rights as the Bill of Responsibilities, because you can't any right that doesn't transfer to responsibility is a false right, and you can transfer the Second Amendment into a responsibility. You have a responsibility to defend yourself, and the state may not interfere with that. In
yeah,
fact, that'd be a much stronger writing of it than the way it is now. But they assumed that we all understood that a right meant a responsibility when they wrote it. There's a lot of assumptions there that modern people are not educated well enough to understand. that are in the fundamental structure. It was written for a different people than are currently in America. It was
Yeah.
written for this people that had this fundamental understanding of their responsibilities. So when it comes to other things as a man, you're responsible for changing that story.
Yeah.
If you're a woman, until you're old. If you're an old woman, you're screwed too. But if you're a young woman, there's an unlimited lineup of people who will come to save you or prey on you. And your problem is you can't tell the difference. If you're a
Yes.
man, nobody cares about you.
Mm.
There are still people out there that will help you or prey on you, but it's a lot less. And so it's unfair for men and it's unfair for women. If you weren't raised right, it's just unfair for you. But here's the thing, complaining that it's unfair doesn't change it.
Yes. Like we said before.
Yeah. So you can complain all you want about it. That isn't going to change it. What'll change it is our actions. And there is no reason to stay stuck. We are at the time in history where it's never been easier to find the answers to our problems. And despite, yeah, there's a lot of economic issues going on right now. Cost of living is way higher than it should be. Jobs are hard to come by and all that. But there are other aspects of it that have given us an opportunity to connect with each other. Look, we're having a conversation across oceans.
Yeah.
This would, and then you're going to put it on a website where anyone in the world can see it for free.
Yeah.
This wasn't a thing when we were kids. None of this
Exactly.
existed.
Yeah.
When we were kids, if you wanted to learn something, you had to go to the library and take out a book, which meant you had to know the book existed to find it in the first place.
Yeah.
So we didn't learn anything. We would I was a really big on going there because I had very stressful childhood, and I thought to myself, I'm going to go insane if I don't figure out some way to deal with all this stress. So I spent a lot of time reading in the library about how to deal with stress and meditation and all that stuff, and that's partly why I am doing the job I'm doing now. But for most people, it's beyond them to do that. But now it's easy. Go on YouTube, type in, here's my problem. YouTube, okay, yeah, okay, here's a guy explaining the exact same problem and how to fix it.
Yeah.
All
I
we have to
agree
do
with
is
you.
do it.
That's see that ties into the first topic, meaning that it's never been easier to connect with other men, but we still have a male loneliness problem. How could there be? Maybe I'm too optimistic. I don't know. Maybe I'm too optimistic. I don't think so. How could there be loneliness when you have access to all these men to talk to, and you could just get on a phone, get in your car, get on a train or whatever, and meet other men and solve your loneliness? What?
Yeah.
I just
I
can't.
was talking to a client last week. Oh no, earlier this week actually. And this client had gone to a psychedelic retreat to help deal with childhood trauma issues and whatnot. And part of what happens is it opens up your mind. Uh, it basically opens every door in your mind and shakes everything up. And then you have to go and resort everything. So he's in this process of resorting. Took a couple of weeks off work. He's in the process of resorting. And it's a difficult process. And he was close to the end of it when he was talking to me. And he's telling me about all of these friends of his, like 4 or 5 people that would just spend an hour or 2 hours listening to him work through it and helping him to figure things out while he was at his worst. And I said, you have a lot of really good people in your life. And that's not an accident, because he was having some am I a good person self-esteem issues. I said, if you were a shitty person, you wouldn't have anybody in your life. You'd be all alone and no one would want to talk to you. And the only person who want to talk to you is me because you're paying me. And that would be it.
Yeah.
you know? And the fact that you have all these people in your life is a signal that you are doing something virtuous that they see and they want to be in there. They want to be part of your life. They want to give you their time because giving you their time makes them feel better because they like you.
Yes.
And that's the thing. Make yourself more likable. Stop being a whining, complaining bitch, basically,
Yes. I
Stop
mean.
it. Stop
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Stop being so unappealing to men and women that no one wants to be around you. Just be useful, be good, be kind. Not
Yes.
nice, but kind.
Yes. I
And
agree.
all of a sudden people will be around you,
Yes.
you
Right.
know?
Yeah, because that is actually what you're saying has worked for me personally. So
Mhm.
some people might say they might disparagingly say, "Well, I don't want to hear this man up thing. I don't want to hear. I'm not going to be told to be kind. Look at this. look at this jackass. He's getting all he wants. He's evil. He's getting all these women. He has friends. I've already tried that, but I actually believe, like we've been saying, we've been hinting at that
I,
you can
go ahead.
be you can be kind and strong and know how to defend yourself at the same time. You
Yes.
don't have to turn. Yeah, good.
Yeah, if you're helpless, you can't be kind. It's impossible.
Yes,
Because you can't, you're just doing what you can do. You're trying to survive by not being seen, or
yes,
by being, that's nice. You're trying to be nice. Haha, I'm not a threat. Don't
yeah,
attack me. I'm not a threat. But if you are dangerous, if you are a potential threat and you are still kind,
exactly.
then that's attractive. People love that,
Yeah,
you know? And
yeah,
it's funny that actually a lot of the same things that attract women towards a man attract good male friendships as well.
yes,
He's useful, he's intelligent, he is got something interesting to say. He is trustworthy. All of these kind of things that attract good women. Whenever I say attract women, I'm talking about healthy people. You just don't want to attract the unhealthy.
exactly. Yes,
Yeah, but if you are really truly all alone, it's usually because you're isolating yourself, not because the world is so bad.
yes,
And if you're doing that, stop. There's an old Bob Newhart skit where people come into him as a psychologist, and he tells them that they say, oh, I'm doing this, and every time I do that, it really hurts, and these bad things happen. And he says, uh-huh, uh-huh. It says, okay, here's my advice. Stop it.
yeah,
Just stop doing that stupid thing that's causing you problems.
yeah,
If everyone you meet you don't get along with, it's probably you.
yes. I agree with that.
If yeah, and so just stop it. Stop being so annoying.
Yeah, that too, yes. And one thing I want to top off with is also I want to get back to this just to hit it home is that you said that you would like to see a bill of responsibilities. Is that what you said, if I
Yeah,
recall?
yeah. I'd like to see the Bill of Rights switched over to a Bill of
Yes,
Responsibilities. Same
right.
protections, but the wording is important.
Right, because what hit home with me when you just said that is that two of my favorite authors. I actually have two interviews with Dr. Stephen Baskerville on my channel. Very wrote great, excellent books I have on my desk here, and also Roger Devlin's book, as I said before, Sexual Utopia and Power. Is that I think that what he said, I don't know the quote directly this time, but Devlin said that, like Dr. Baskerville, he's not, let's say, a men's rights advocate, but more of or activist, more of a men's duties activist.
Yeah.
And I think that makes much more sense. No, I mean, we have rights. We do need certain rights granted in society. But when he said men's duties, I know that some men might not like that. Like, why are you putting all this stuff on men? There should be so-called equality amongst the
Well,
sexes.
you look, it's like this. You get to choose when you're 16, 17, 18 if you want to be a man or a male.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you want to be a man, it's you have a dick and a Y chromosome and you have responsibility.
Yes.
And a male, you have that and no responsibility.
Yeah.
And you get to choose. And if you choose to be a male and you get sick of it, you can choose to take on responsibility and become a man. But a man is an earned title. Throughout all of history, it's been that way.
Mm,
I'm mostly Germanic background, and in Germanic tribes, you had to be accepted into a Mannerbund, into some sort of men's guild that wasn't family based. You were in your family based tribe, but you also had to be in some sort of a manor guild, a Mannerbund by the time that, depending on the tribe, 23 or 27. And if you weren't, you never could get into one because you're considered a lifelong failure and you couldn't get married.
yes.
So and the way to get in is two men would have to vouch for you. And they'd have to say, if he screws up, I'll pay the cost of that. Because screw up might leave you dead and you can't pay nothing then. So I'll pay the cost of that. What that meant is of your entire tribe, all the people you know, no two men would vouch for you. That means you were a failure.
Yes.
If you're a young guy right now, what responsible adult man will vouch for you that you're a solid dude?
Mm,
And if you don't have anyone, think about how you'd put yourself in a place where a man would vouch for you. There are young
yeah.
men I'd vouch for sure. Some of them who I coached, some of them who I've met through the Natural Law Institute. And I would say, if something happened to me, I totally trust them to have my back. I trust them with my kids, because they're solid men. If nobody trusts you, you're not even really a man. Not
Yeah.
only are you so isolated, but it means everyone believes you can't handle responsibility. And that's the defining characteristic of being a man.
Yes. That's great. The way I agree with all that. I mean, that's what is, and that's what I believe in. So, yes, so I think that tops it off. We talked about the topics that I wanted to touch upon, and I really, again, I thank you for being with me here and offering all this great information, positive, useful, keyword useful information that people can put to use and think about these days, rather than just, as we said, whining and complaining on the internet. So,
Yeah.
is there any places online that people can find you?
So you can find me on X. It's Noah Revoy on X. You can find my website, noahrevoy.com, or you can look me up on Amazon. I think Amazon US and Europe. You'll see my book, which is in the top corner here. It's about protecting yourself from manipulation, whether that be from society, from your friends, from your family, or from people you might date. And not only how to protect yourself from the manipulation, how to get other people in your life to stop trying to manipulate you without losing the relationships. So many people today, that's all, well, the only way they know how to interact with other people is through manipulation. Doesn't mean they're bad people, they just don't know any other way. Well, how do you incentivize the people around you to treat you with reciprocity and honesty instead? And so the book covers that, will teach you how to do it.
That sounds great. Any other? Do you have a website or
Yeah,
any
yeah.
other?
NoahRevoy.com is my website. And you'll see, I don't have a lot of writing on the website, but you can contact me through there. And again, I'm a coach. I help you, any man that wants to come or woman that wants to come to me and help solve the problems in their life. I have another book. This is only for people that work with me. It is Reprogram Your Life, Your Pathway to Agency. And what I'll do is teach you all the things your dad should have taught you, but probably didn't know himself and couldn't teach you so that you become a real, true, complete adult capable of exercising your will to accomplish whatever it is you want to do in life.
That sounds that sounds excellent. I think that a lot of men can benefit from such a book these days. So,
Yeah.
thank you for being with me today.
It's nice. I appreciate it.